Welcome to Alberta Conservation Association's Harvest Your Own podcast, the resource for everything hunting, navigating through the field, the butcher shop, and the kitchen. Life is all about great food. Let's get started.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Brad Fenson, an avid outdoor enthusiast who has worked as a freelance journalist, photographer, and public speaker for over 3 decades. I have hunted, fished, and foraged all my life and hope to share my passion for the outdoors. Along the way, I want to encourage everyone to harvest wild proteins and enjoy the satisfaction of providing the next meal for your family. Our goal is to educate, entertain, and inspire individuals to get outdoors and create a connection between food, health, and your future meals. Welcome to Harvest Your Own. Today we have somebody that's quite familiar with the Harvest Your Own program on the back side of it. It's Cassandra Hewitt, and we'd probably describe her as an outdoor enthusiast, an angler, she grew up fishing, hunter, rather new to the hunting game, photographer, which has been a passion, which keeps her outdoors and in around wildlife, and she's part of the communications team at Alberta Conservation Association as the social media coordinator. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you.
Yes. So what exactly is a social media coordinator?
The true definition, I would say I am your touch base for everything online, apart from the website. So if you see it on any kind of social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, I probably had something to do with it, if not the main portion of it. In the fun world, I might say it is the wrangler of all the interesting commentary.
Yes, I forgot about that backdoor and that background that needs to be taken care of, and there's always lots of that with different posts, especially when we're talking about things like hunting.
Oh yes, there's opinions everywhere.
So I'm guessing your phone is pretty important to you.
I have 2, so I'm usually not without at least one of them.
That's not a Facebook and an Instagram, and you don't have a phone for each different type of media.
No, I'm not that far yet, but I have a personal and I have a work.
You know, social media is crucial to a lot of people in our society. I often say if the grid went down, we had no power, couldn't charge our phones, there would be people that I'd say they'd be mentally unstable for a time.
I can 100% agree to that. I mean, Instagram and Facebook and, the Meta company that encompasses them goes down more often than people might think. And there's a lot of panic online of, okay, now what do I do? This is my job. This is my life, especially, as you might know, the world of the influencers and content creators. If you lose your platform, you're might lose. Well, exactly. If you're not doing, an omni-channel like you are, a bunch of other things, writing and everything else and that, you're very limited to Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok sort of idea. And one of them goes, that's a huge revenue.
And you probably know this better than I do. It can be a pretty fickle crowd. One day they're there, the next day they're not.
And not even the crowd. It can be the platform themselves. One day your content's okay, and the next day it's not appropriate for the masses.
Yes, and we don't get to judge that.
Nope.
I bring that up because social media is a big part of our lives, a big part of our careers, obviously a huge part of yours. And it also plays a big role in hunting. And I think you've seen some of that and experienced it. We have you here today to talk about your experience as a new hunter, the steps that it took to get you there, the people that you encountered along the way, and the different, what's the right word, thoughts, good and bad, that you had to deal with, how it affected you, and where it got you to today.
Oh, yeah, well, social media definitely played a big part in that.
And still does.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Very much so.
We see social media as a huge piranha. It can swim around and look quite beautiful and colorful, but when it wants, it can be a flesh eater.
Very much so.
Yeah. So I believe the first time we met was at Waterfall Warm-Up. Is that correct?
Yes. That is the first event I ever did with ACA.
Right. And I mean, you work at ACA and I deal with the communications team a lot, but I had never met you in person. And I remember pulling up to the one station, I think it was the Benelli station. Dan Mosier was there with a bunch of different shotguns and things. And here was this young lady trying to master a shotgun.
Yes. That was the first time in many years that I had been around a gun. So Dan was kind enough to show me the ropes a bit. We got shooting a little bit, hit a couple clays, and then he said, you know what, go find Brad. There's something going on here that I can't fix and I can't see. Go get Brad.
Yeah, and I'm fortunate. I have had instruction from some of the best shotgunners in the world, and I've spent days on the range with them where they were more patient than anything to teach me the skills to use a shotgun effectively. And some days it really works, and some days I miss, just like everyone else. The reason I bring it up is to get a bit of background here, and it sounds like Cassandra moved to Alberta or got a new job, shows up at the range, picks up a shotgun, and bing, bang, boom, the clays are breaking in the sky. But that's not exactly how it happened.
Oh, no. There was a lot of back and forth for a lot of years on where this was going to go.
Yeah, and for those of you that read Conservation Magazine, if you don't, you need to go online with Alberta Conservation Association and sign up to get it. Great magazine about the projects that go on in Alberta, wildlife and fisheries information, habitat, biodiversity. It is a full shopping list of everything outdoors, from collecting your own berries to how to get started hunting.
Yep, and it's free, so you can't go wrong with that.
Absolutely. And I recall your first article that was in there. And that, it took me back a little bit because I met you at the range and you were pretty confident. You picked up the gun and, I helped you out, but you were breaking clays right away. But that wasn't always the case. Let's go back to when you went to university in Ontario.
Yes, I went to Trent University in Peterborough, Ontario, in the Kawartha Lakes region. So beautiful cottage country.
It is great fishing country.
Yeah, I grew up right on the water. Grandparents had a dock. You come off the bus and run right down and grab a rod and you're good to go.
Yeah. And your friends, outdoorsy when you're growing up?
I would call them outsidey.
Okay.
So they like to be outside, but you're not about to find them in a tent or, too far from, a 5-kilometer hike sort of idea. I had a couple friends that, really were outdoorsy and very camping and all that other stuff, but the main group were outsidey.
So we would say they're certainly non-consumptive and they needed some modern conveniences.
Yes.
Okay. And how did that impact you or affect your thoughts about outdoor recreation? Did they approve of fishing?
Oh, yeah. A few of them were growing up in the Muskoka, so they were very much into angling and everything like that, or at least their grandparents did at some point, so they were a bit more okay with that. You might notice a lot of people online are. It seems to be that kind of, you're okay with fishing, but maybe not hunting, or you're both sort of idea. They were great with fishing, but hunting was a little, how could you go after Bambi?
Yeah. So it's interesting how people think, but one step further, I believe from reading your article, they don't believe anyone should own a gun, touch a gun, because as soon as you do, you're going to want to harm somebody.
Yes, they were very much into that kind of news cycle of anytime somebody had a gun, it was always bad news. There was no protect your land. There was no get sustenance. It was, why would you need that when you can go to the grocery store?
Yeah, and I'm not sure how people could, in modern times, think like that. Watch the Olympic Games. There's skeet shooters. There's biathlon, triathlon, all kinds of different shooting events right within the Olympics that show athletic ability and stability. It's pretty naive to think that if you touch a gun, you're going to harm somebody.
I think a lot of it comes from lack of information, and the information that they do get is either skewed towards that negative media, or they've only really ever seen it in the sense of police and military. So they don't see the other side of it.
Right. So long story short, you live in Ontario, you love the outdoors. It's your life.
Yep.
Right. You love fishing. You have friends that understand what you do for the most part. You go for a trip to Calgary with your parents and they think, hey, it might be kind of cool to try a handgun. There's a range in downtown Calgary. We can go do this. What happened there?
So we went down, and this was where the old Calgary climbing gym used to be before I went to the Olympic Park. We went in. My parents were like, let's go do some handguns. They're interested in that aspect. I kind of on the fence of it, wasn't really sure. Said, okay, fine. We get into the room where the instructor is going through handling and all of that other stuff. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it was the pressure or the mentality, everybody getting in my head. Eventually it came to my turn and I froze, borderline panic attack, and went, nope, and went next door to the climbing gym.
Right.
And then it took from basically then, which I think was close to 2016, 2017, to 2022 before I even went near a gun again.
Yeah, and it's interesting, we do a lot of podcasts. I talk to a lot of people that are getting into hunting. Firearms are an unknown is the best way to put it. So it's the unknown that scares people. But if you have the right education and instructor and even especially the right mentor, I think it really takes that edge off. You went from a community that was anti-gun, didn't even want you to touch one, to curiosity with family to try it, and it was a little overwhelming. You eventually moved to Alberta.
Yep.
And you worked for one of the biggest outdoor retailers in Canada.
I did. So I was exposed a bit more.
Yeah, and the people you worked with were a different crowd than who you went to school with.
Yep, 100%.
What were they like?
They went from everywhere from, we camp a little bit to we're here part-time because we love what we do. The discount is great. It fuels the passion sort of idea. So it was the whole range of non-hunters to hunters extreme. And I was exposed to all of it. So I made some friends over in the hunting side of the store. I was on the other side with clothing and footwear and camping, and chatted a bit more, debated, I'll go see what it's like. The opportunity never came up to go see hunting at the time, but it still stayed. I still kept in touch with them, followed around on social media what they were doing, and a couple years later, reconnected with a few of them.
This podcast is produced for Harvest Your Own, a program dedicated to those who want to reconnect with food and health through their experiences outdoors. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a resource for individuals to learn more about hunting and the outdoors. There's information to get you started and ensure that your compass stays pointed in the right direction to be successful. Where's your next meal coming from?
So you approach things with an open mind, even though you'd had heavy influence from your university days.
Yes, I'm kind of one of those that I'll try everything once, apart from skydiving without a parachute.
Depends how big the lake is.
Yeah, exactly. How close I am to it.
Right. Well, that's a big step because we talk about you dealing with the comments and stuff on social media. And I would say there's a lot of people out there, I couldn't tell you percentages, that it doesn't matter what you do or say, you're not going to sway their opinion about guns or hunting.
Oh, no. There's a group that are on the fence. There's a group that's 10 miles away from the fence. It just...
Right. But you got to meet people and they were fairly normal. If anything, they were more like you because they loved the outdoors. It was a passion.
Yep.
They could stay out in a tent. They didn't need the modern conveniences, and consumptive activities meant they ate pretty good afterwards.
Yes. So made it a lot easier to have people of a similar mentality.
Yeah. So when's the first time you ever tried wild game?
I know when I was very young, there were times where we got like pepperette sticks from a local guy, and I know there was a mix of either moose, deer, and then there was one time someone brought bear, but I was, I don't know, not much older than your girls.
Right.
So I have a vague memory of it. Then the next time would have been, a lot of places you can get elk or bison, so there's in a burger at a restaurant, so there's that. So not really wild, but keeping up with it. And then true was at work one day when I was still working retail. Someone came in with goose jerky, so that was the first time on that one.
That's the golden ticket for converting people. Goose jerky.
Yep.
Do you think those early days of your childhood when you got to try some wild game influenced you to keep an open mind later?
I am what I would call a garber eater. I will eat just about anything. My mom made sure. She's a bit of a picky eater, and if it was new, it was chicken or beef. Until I went, I like this, then it was whatever it was. So I'm willing to try anything at least once, which helps a lot when it comes to wild game and different recipes and cooking. And, what happens if I throw all of this garlic into here? I'll try it. Might not like it, but I'll try it.
But then Yeah, so it's an interesting storyline here. You grow up, love the outdoors, love fishing. Yeah, you tried some wild game. Go to university, you hit a crowd that's like a brick wall. Yikes. no guns, no hunting, not acceptable. Don't even talk to me about it, right?
Exactly.
You go with parents on a vacation, get a chance to try a handgun, and it's intimidating is the best way to put it.
Yep.
Maybe not the tool so much as the crowd being watched.
I mean, even after everything in the last year, I still, handguns and I are not, I don't know if it'll ever be something that I'm willing to. I know how they work. I can, pull one apart. It's whatever. It's not for me.
Right.
But
it's not for everyone.
So it just might be that the wrong tool.
Then you work retail in Alberta and you meet a consumptive crowd is what we'll call them. People that eat well, smile a lot, love the outdoors.
Yep.
How did that lead to you getting on the shotgun range at Waterfall Warm-Up?
Well, fast forward a few years, couple jobs, COVID, new job. So I started with ACA right before that Waterfall Warm-Up. And when I say right before, I mean 2 weeks before that event. And I was going with Charmaine Brunez, our graphic designer, and for that event, she was doing the photography. And she had mentioned that one of the things they're always missing is people at the demo stations and getting photos. So going, okay, new kid, sure, I'll pose for you, whatever, it's fine. So we got to the end. I wasn't sure we were going to do it or not. And then she goes, okay, let's go do it. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. This is the first time we've been around a gun since that handgun incident. Nobody panic. So I'm sitting there going, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
Nobody else knew your background at this point either.
No, and she had no idea that I was even remotely nervous. But she was like, all right, I'm going to put you with Dan. Dan's great. He's done this before. He's, she had confidence in Dan, so he got me going. We started shooting. Wasn't as bad. Kind of enjoyable. And then it was, okay, you're shooting some way, somehow. I don't know how. Go get Brad. And then...
Do you remember the exercises we did?
Yes.
Took an empty gun and told you to put it on your shoulder, made sure it sat properly, and then you ran the bead or the aiming point along the top of the trees in front of us.
Yep.
And followed it back along the ground on the edge, just to learn how to fluently move the gun, keep it on target, and keep that bead where it needs to be instead of showing up above the rib and disappearing below it or off to one side. But you caught on quick. We probably did that for 2 minutes.
Yeah, give or take.
And then what happened?
Yeah, hitting probably a C+ average. I would say, at least 5 to 6 out of 10, give or take.
I wish I had a picture of your face when you hit the first one. Because you were surprised, but you were exhilarated too. Like it was like a switch got flipped.
Yeah.
You wanted to shoot more.
Well, as soon as you get successful at something, you do it, you're going, okay.
Yeah.
How many more times?
So that brings up an interesting question. How important is it to have a mentor?
Extremely important. I mean, there's tons of things you can do in life and you can figure it out on your own. And I'm sure someone can go, I figured out hunting on my own. But if you have somebody who can take you from 0 to, whatever level you're at and help with the confidence, that's a community that you have. And community is important. And that's something that the hunting, even online, is. It's a community. There's always somebody who's going to be able to answer a question, whether that's in a forum like Alberta Outdoorsman or on a post for another company online or just on your own post asking people, hey, what do you think? There's always going to be somebody willing to give their opinion and give their thoughts, whether you agree with them or not. That's the whole other ballgame. But that community gives you not just one mentor, but many. And that's...
And find the good ones.
Exactly. There's a mentor for everybody.
Right. So in that first article you wrote about your experienced mixed emotions, it was in the winter issue of Conservation. You had some novice tips. So I'd encourage anyone thinking about trying firearms, getting into hunting. If you're not sure, find that article and read it, because the tips are, don't be afraid, and if you have inhibitions, that's all right. Like, you can live with that.
Yep.
Take it one step at a time. And when you find success, embrace it.
Yeah.
Right? So where did we go from there? Here you're brand new on the job, 2 weeks in, had to, face one of your fears that you've been ridiculed about in university and had friends questioning about, and all of a sudden the world is changing.
Yeah. Well, after that, I got my hunter's ed through a HIA. So I did that through online, and that was a really easy, quick, and painless process for anybody who's looking to get it. And then winter hit, the first fall season sort of idea. I didn't do anything and went to Tabor at the Tabor Pheasant Fest, shot a couple times at the Novice shoot, just at the clays. And we met back up, you and I, along with the rest of the comms team, in January, February, and we had discussed, we'll go out for some snow goose. So we went him and hawing about when that was going to be for the one day they kind of showed up that year. So we missed out on that one. So
fickle spring birds.
Yeah. So that missed out. So that would have been the first hopeful hunt. That didn't happen. So then in April, a lot of ACA staff got the opportunity to complete their PAL with a HIA. So I went and did that. I just figured the opportunities presented itself. I'd rather know than not know. So we did that with Len and his team. It was great. They made it enjoyable.
This podcast was made possible by Alberta Conservation Association and the Harvest Your Own community. If you're interested in harvesting your own food, there's a comprehensive collection of information to gain insight and knowledge. Head to the field, harvest your own protein, prepare it, and taste the results. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a library of information from getting started and geared up to processing, butchering, and cooking wild game to make the connection between health and food.
How beneficial is that Alberta Hunter Education Instructors Association, the Hunter Education, the PAL course? Is it something you recommend for anyone that doesn't even know if they want to be a hunter?
100%. At least do the hunter's education course. That'll give you a background on the different ethics. Even if you're wanting to get outside, you're looking at survival, first aid, species identification, all that other fun stuff that's not just hunting that you can take and do non-hunting related things with.
Yeah. And, I think that's important for society. They teach it in schools now, which is great if the school opts into it, but it introduces people to let them know that hunting is all right, so that you don't have a community like you ran into in university where it's like, I'm never going to talk to you if you do that.
Well, that's a big difference too. Alberta has that course and they have it in a lot of the schools. I went through the majority of the Ontario school system as well as part of Quebec, and that's never been something that's offered. So we're a little bit lacking on the east side there for hunting and outdoor education that way.
Yes, and that's something that we'd like to see right across the country.
Yeah.
So next big step. Let's go back to some of the people you met in retail. I think it was the Olivers.
Yes, Daryl and Ron.
Now, we tried snow geese. They didn't cooperate. The migration was on and off. It snowed, it rained, it got screaming hot, and there was no rhyme or reason to the migration. We missed out. But they put on a Delta Waterfowl 101 course. Yes,
so Daryl and Ron are volunteers, members with the Delta Waterfowl Parkland Pintail chapter out here by Edmonton. So Daryl let me know that in September, they always do a 101 waterfowl course where you spend a weekend day at a member's farm and they basically take you, it's almost like a summer camp. You go from station to station and you learn different aspects. You have some lunch, which Josh Glover was cooking. So it's a good time. And that was actually one of the courses was cooking and food prep. So he was part of that one. And then you do some more stations, which includes clay shooting, range finding, some dog handling stuff, decoy placement and all of that. And then you have an opportunity to go on the mentored hunt that night with your group, or you can come back at a later date and you'll go with your group again. So I went out that night and I signed up and asked to be with Daryl. So Daryl was my mentor for the hunt, and Ron, who at the time, I think Ron was 15, the youngest member volunteer for Delta Parkland Pintail there. He took me around the day along with Neil, who's Daryl's nephew. So then we went out that night. It was a bit of a slow night. They weren't very active. And they all managed to shoot a couple geese, a couple ducks. I had one. I tried, gun jammed, so we didn't get very far. But it was the first hunt. So that was the first time I've ever seen anything besides, a vole or a mouse or a house sparrow that my cat pulled. And it was a bit of an emotional time.
Yeah, just because of the birds that your companions harvested.
Yeah, so there was one hen that was at my feet. She was kind of in and out. someone else might have just left her, but I could see her kind of moving, so that her being at my feet and watching was kind of the hard part. Daryl realized after and was like, let me go deal with this. And then, that was near the end, so that was just basically what concluded the trip. They shot a couple more. My gun jammed. So coyote go running. We packed up and went back to the farm. They had a couple geese left over. Some of the guys had shot. So they sent me home with a couple of white-fronted.
Nice. The best eating of all waterfowl.
Yeah.
I talk a little bit about the emotions and compassion for the wildlife, because I felt that. I remember the first deer I shot. It was pulling on the heartstrings hard. It was something I wanted to do so bad, but it is a flood of emotions and mixed emotions. And I will say that it gets easier as time goes on, but I think the respect actually gets stronger.
I would agree.
So it's something to share, because there's a lot of people out there that are thinking about getting into hunting, and you'll have to deal with this at some point.
And I think it's a missing factor online. People don't see the emotional side. They just see the grip and grin shot. They don't see everything.
They can't see what you feel.
Exactly. So they just get a different idea of what hunting is, because they're missing all that background.
But nothing has dissuaded you to this point.
No.
You're still determined to be successful.
Yes.
So what happened next?
So went to work, and Todd Zimmerling, the president CEO of ACA, was listening to my story of what, going on at the Delta hunt. And he said, well, let's plan a trip. So he took a few of us from work and kind of showed us the ropes a little bit of, this is what setting up a spread is. Linda, his wife, showed us how to set up blinds, and we went for a hunt with them. So that was a nice way to introduce, which has been great at ACA, is that there's always somebody who's willing to take you somewhere to introduce you to something. And we went out that night. I still shot nothing. I sat next to Colin and Linda.
Did you get some attempts?
Oh, I attempted.
Yep.
But next to those two, I would have had better luck shooting grass. They are much better shots than I am, so I humbly took my defeat. So again, Todd and Linda invited me out to go out with their family, so I went out with Todd's dad, their son, and their son's wife. And then I finally made contact. So I was sitting with Linda again, and Linda gave me a few more pointers. Todd was off with Coda, their dog, picking up a goose somewhere down a field, and I managed to hit one. And Tyler, Todd and Linda's son, just was like hollering, yes. Linda's, cheering a bit, and I was like, okay, I did it. Now what? So we shot a couple more times. It was a busy night, and that night, Linda guesstimated about probably 3 to 4 that I probably hit. So I was like, okay, now I finally successfully hunted. I did what I went out to do.
How'd that feel?
It was good. Like you said, as you get further down it, the emotions don't go away. You just deal with it a bit better. So I kind of went from okay, come on, we got to do this, to like, finally, okay. And it's kind of the same thing of like when you're in school. It's like, oh, I finally know how to add this equation together. Yay.
Algebra.
Now we move on. So I got to that point and I was like, okay, I did it. Great. What's next? And yeah, so.
I like to refer to that as the Zimmerling experience. They do mentor a lot of people.
They do. And it's great of them. And that's what, like I said, the community, finding those mentors, like they've been great.
And they take their time. You can go out with a group and everyone shoots. And if you're new to it, you're not the first one to stand up. And by the time you pick a bird, it's falling. You don't know what's going on. But, they're mentors that they don't really care if they shoot another one. They've shot lots. They take the time. They instruct you. They let you get up. They encourage you. They tell you if you're leading enough. And next thing you know, you have a goose in your hand.
Exactly. It was great, yeah. And there was no pressure. Both of them, the whole team, they're all going, if you don't want to shoot, just follow. Follow with the bead like we did at waterfowl. And just get practice of getting up and shouldering and following. And do that a couple times if that makes you happy. And if that's all you want to do, that's fine.
Did it create any pride? Were you proud of your accomplishment?
Oh, yeah. Like I went home and I was like, I shot this.
Right? It's hard to, it's hard to express that type of emotion too, because it was a long journey getting there.
Oh, there was a lot of missed shots and, background to it.
I will say one thing. The one thing I tell everybody is the people that make the most noise have the most fun. So if you miss lots, that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
You don't believe that, do you?
And if you make too much noise, they might not come back.
So what's next?
Well, after that, I went with the Alberta chapter of the Wildlife Society, and Remington Bratcher, he was on the podcast a little while ago. I met him when I was working in retail as well. He has been doing a bunch of student activities, getting some of the students out from behind their desks into the field, whether it's fishing, just at a shooting range. Some of them went on pheasant hunts, but I went and joined him on another goose hunt. So that was a different experience because it was lay down blinds, and I have discovered I don't really like them. It started raining that night, and we laid there a little bit, and the rain in my face and the blind. I was like, okay, this is not how I want to go if this ever happened. But it was a different experience having to sit up from laying down flat and shooting. And I, managed to shoot one. I had a bit of experience. Some of the other hunters, they were either completely new or they were really into firearms but never hunted, or they had hunted a few more times than me because they had been on some with Remington before. So after that, we went to Jason Stiliker's house, and he's Canadian Premier Hunts. He's with Alberta Professional Outfitter Society. Outfitter Society. Yeah. And Remington and him showed us how to clean the birds. I had done a couple because I'd done the Delta course before and cleaning a bunch of birds with Todd and Linda. I took a back seat and kind of helped some of the other students clean their birds. And I made a deal with one of the guys. I said, if you clean my bird, you can take it home. So we went, okay. So
overall, I'd say it's a very successful first year.
Yes.
Are you looking at expanding into big game?
I am. I have, but that'll be a conversation for a later date. But I have. And I'm looking forward to, hopefully getting out for some spring snow goose this year if they actually show up. Looking at maybe purchasing my own first shotgun. So that'll be a whole other experience.
Big steps.
Yes.
Awesome. Any advice for people out there that might have hit the same stumbling blocks that you did, where they've got friends or family that are kind of giving them a hard time about showing any interest?
It's hard to get around the family and friend group, but if they really are your family and their friends, they'll either accept it, either whether they understand it or not, or you have a hard decision to make, maybe, whether that's maybe you need some new friends, or you have separate groups of friends, or you unfortunately don't go forward with trying. And for me, moving was an easy, kind of made the decision for me. I went from one group to a new group. But if you can't find it within your normal close-knit group, find another group.
Don't let others make your decisions in life.
No.
Be your own person, answer to yourself. And if you do truly have an interest in anything, whether it's hunting, taking a cooking course, learning how to dance, go downhill skiing, do it. Yep. Life's a short adventure, and it is what you make it. So if you have any inclination to get out there and try something, please do.
Exactly.
Good. Where do people find out more information about Alberta Conservation Association?
They can go either on our website at ab-conservation.com. They can find us on pretty much any social media platform. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and that'll be Alberta Conservation Association on LinkedIn and Facebook, or Alberta_conservation on Instagram. And you can find out much more about us from there.
Yes, and don't forget to look up Harvest Your Own.
Exactly.
We have the podcast, and there's a library of information to get started and to guide you through everything from cleaning what you're successful with in the field to cooking it and sharing it with family and friends.
Yep, and everything in between.
Thanks for joining us today. It is a great story. I hope you inspire other people to get out there, be individuals, be yourself, answer to yourself, and enjoy life to the fullest.
Exactly. Thank you.
We hope to inspire people to reconnect with nature and appreciate where your food comes from by harvesting your own. For more information on getting started or to learn specifics about the Field to Fork experience, visit harvestyourown.ca and follow on Facebook and Instagram. Check back often for new material, recipes, and videos that are posted regularly. Please subscribe to Harvest Your Own podcast and take the time to rate and review the show to help us build a dedicated core of passionate hunters as our regular audience. Until next time, embrace the outdoors and all it has to offer. Thanks for joining us.